Hello, Mixtresses and Mixters. This is Mixtress Ray, and you're watching Mixtress Video. So, happy fall equinox. I almost said solstice. Happy fall. So we are now technically in the Deacon. So if you don't know this, every minor arcana card is associated with about 10 days of the year. The non-court minor arcana cards. So the 2 through 10, not the aces, 2 through 10. And we are now in 2 of Swords. So I wish I could just like click that up there so that that can be part of the visual. But you'll just have to get out your favorite. Go through your decks right now, get out your favorite 2 of Swords, because I really think that this is important. Not only every year is this important to focus on the 2 of Swords at this time of year, but I think it's also extremely important right now. So a lot of people will define the 2 of Swords as there's a decision that you need to make. You're being indecisive, and as a Libra Sun, Libra Rising, Libra Mars, Libra, no, not Libra Mars, Libra, what's the Mercury? I have a lot of fucking Libra in my chart, so I come from Libra. I understand Libra, I come from Libra. So yes, we are indecisive, that is correct. However, something that I really think is at the heart of the 2 of Swords is this idea that you are shutting out the words and opinions of everyone else so that you can find your own answers. You know, she is the minor arcana's version of the high priestess, right? This is not about, it's not about like you're being indecisive, you're willfully not looking at all the answers, you're willfully not looking at all the information, which sometimes people will define the 2 of Swords that way. I didn't even think about this before I sat down, that I'm wearing my 2 of Swords earrings right now. I did not even think about that, but that's perfect. No, the thing with the 2 of Swords, in my opinion, is this is a sacred boundary card. This is you, if you look, her legs are open. I mean, not in a, you know, come and get me sailor kind of way, but her legs are relaxed. You know, her body from the waist down is relaxed. It's just this part. She's protecting her heart, and she's protecting her like crown, third eye, and heart chakra. She's protecting that energy. She's shutting out what everyone else feels about her and what everyone else is saying to her so that she can find her own answers. Lately, I've been thinking a lot about how words are spells. You know, like recently Grace Mary Grace gave me the great piece of advice that I've been trying to employ whenever I look up tarot deck walkthroughs. She's just like, mute that shit. Because when you mute it, I mean, even if you like the person, like my advice is mute it the first time you watch it again and unmute it. That way you can hear what the person has to say and what their opinions are. But if you are, for me anyway, if I am watching a deck walkthrough of a deck that I might be kind of on the fence on, I don't know how I feel about it. So I'm looking up a deck walkthrough because I want to see what the cards are like, right? But whenever I'm watching what someone else when I'm hearing what someone else thinks while I'm looking at the imagery, it's casting a spell on me. So sometimes I've bought a deck that if I had not been listening to what the person was saying, and I would not be, because no matter, I mean, maybe I'm more gullible and more susceptible than other people. I am actually a pretty gullible person. So it's definitely an issue for me, and it might not be as much of an issue for you. But for me, words are spells. You know, marketing is a spell. And a lot of us, whether we mean to or not, we're selling decks to each other, right? I never mean to sell y'all a deck, except when I'm talking about Marigold Tarot, because I love it so much. And I think Amrit Brar is amazing. And so I want her to get all the money that I might be able to to influence her way, you know, that I might be able to slightly help get towards her. What? So the point of all of this, the point of Two of Swords season, which is like from the time that you see this video up through, I think up through like the 30th, maybe even slightly beyond that. Yeah, it's right through like until all the planets go direct again, almost, give or take a day. Because right now we have 6 planets in retrograde. So don't feel bad if your communication with people has been terrible lately. If you're getting in fights with friends, don't feel bad. Okay. So I'm looking at my notes over here. Words are spells. Marketing is a spell. I think we're giving too much credit to the decks, to the tarot decks. We are wanting to find the best in everything so like, for example, you know, just as much as like watching a video where someone's talking, where they're like saying, oh my God, this is the most beautiful deck ever. It's so gorgeous. Look at this, look at this, look at this. As much as that influences us, another thing that can influence us is when the opposite is happening, right? So maybe like I've noticed lately that it's helpful for me to kind of lean into sort of my more negative side, because as far as me personally, I have a smaller budget. I really need to talk myself out of buying more decks. 9 times out of 10, I need to talk myself out of it because I'm going to go over budget, or I'm going to, you know, regret the purchase, you know, and I have to work within that. You know, I'm working on my feelings of guilt associated with that shit, because sometimes I just like, I'm too, you know, I'm placing too much moral value on like whether or not I should be buying a deck right now, and blah 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 blah. I'm shoulding all over myself. But to a certain extent also, you know, I have to work within that because I am a broke bitch. I have to work within, you know, that what my financial reality is. So it's helpful for me to, like, if I am watching a deck walkthrough on mute, so I'm actually hearing, and it works. It works. When you shut out everyone else's thoughts, it's easier to find your own. And if I'm watching a deck walkthrough on mute and I kind of don't like it, and I'm pretty sure it's too expensive for me, there's some deal breakers within the cardstock or whatever, if I amp that up for myself, if I tell myself this deck is garbage, you know, I don't have to tell anyone else that. I don't have to be insulting towards the creator. But if I just say to myself, this deck is garbage, I don't want this, this is shit, I'm gonna hate it. You know, if I kind of like amp that language up for myself, it also casts a spell. It casts a spell of, no, I'm not gonna do this because it's not good for me to do this right now, right? Does that make sense? Okay, let's see. I had I took these notes several days ago. This is what I wrote. So I'm just going to read it out loud and maybe it'll remind me why I was writing this. We don't need a deck at all, but we like them because they are visual prompts. Maybe we want more than 78 visual prompts. So like having one deck would be 78 visual prompts, right? Maybe we want 2,730 visual prompts, because I did the math on how many tarot decks I have. And that's just the tarot decks. How many tarot decks I have, you know, and then 78 cards per deck, right? And then some of them have like a card or two extra. So I have 2,730 of these little visual prompts to help me with my divination journey, right? Which is pretty cool when you think about it. Like, that's fucking plenty, right? It's fucking plenty. I'm still gonna get more decks, but this is still fucking plenty. 2,730. And then I have, I calculated based on how many oracle decks I have and about how many cards are in each oracle deck. Some of those I was guessing because I didn't have them all in front of me, but I have essentially 1,000 oracle cards. So altogether, I have 3,700 ish, give or take a couple dozen, 3,766 visual prompts. So maybe the reason that I wrote that down is just because it's a fun experiment. Like if you're into hyper analyzing your deck collections like I am, you could sit down and be like, okay, how many tarot decks do I have? And then times that by 78 to get your answer of how many different visual prompts you have. Visual prompts for divination, right? If you're thinking of each card as a visual prompt. So I don't know what that has to do with the rest of this conversation, but whatever. I also wrote, and I'm just kind of going through my notes and just trying to remember what the fuck I was talking about, but I made a list of arbitrary things that might make us love a deck. Okay, so I think the way that this connects in is that, like, for example, if you are listening to me talk about how much I love Marigold Tarot or something, there are reasons that are very specific to me why I might love that deck and might not be specific to you, which is why it might be helpful to you if you're watching me do a flip through of Marigold Tarot, for example. Just mute my ass. Shut me the fuck up for once. And that way you can hear what you really think about it, because I'm going to be talking about things that are arbitrary in the grand scheme. They're not arbitrary to me personally, but things that might be arbitrary to someone else. That's why a good review needs to talk. You need to be able to explain exactly why you love or hate something. That way someone else can be like, oh, they hate it because it's this type of cardstock that they hate, but I love that type of cardstock, so I actually might love this deck, you know? So some of the arbitrary reasons that I could be discussing why I love a deck that might not work for you: colors, the pretty things and people in the cards, particular animals, cardstock, you know, and we're all going to have different priorities, right? So it's just, these are all reasons that it would be a good idea to mute a flip through so that you can look at it yourself and be like, okay, what do I think about all of this? Figure out what you think before you let someone else's words cast a spell on you. That's the overall point of this video. Not just about like deck flip throughs, but I'm just using that as an example. Let's see. No review will ever be unbiased. Yeah, I basically said all that. Don't believe the spells that people are casting. Maybe they're literally trying to sell you a deck. They might be. Because if they got it for free, then they feel like they owe something to the creator to say nice things about the deck, which is not true. They don't need to say anything nice about it. But we're all tempted to do that, right? Because we're like, oh, they gave me something. So, you know, you feel warm feelings, so you want to be nice about it. And I get it. I get it. Maybe simply their reasons for liking or not liking it will not align with your reasons. So I basically already said that part. Okay. I also, you know, just as far as my own history with art in general, like part of the reason that I love having different tarot decks is because I used to be an art major. Art was really, in high school, art was one of, if not the reason that I made it through high school, that I graduated high school. And it's not like, you know, if I hadn't graduated high school, I would have gotten my GED at some point anyway, fine, doesn't matter. But I made it through high school partially because of art and because of my mom. She actually, it's kind of a personal story, I guess, but here I go. She advocated for me. She actually sent like the administrators or the principal or somebody a letter saying, you know, I'm really worried. I'm really worried Stephanie's going to drop out of high school and she needs art. And I know she's already taken all the art classes, but if she can just be like in an independent study with the teachers, and I think she had already, or I had already, like we had already talked to the teachers and they were totally fine with it. She was like, if she can just be in an independent study with the art teachers, for the last year, for as many classes as she can, as she's allowed, I think that will really help her get through. And they let me do it. Like an independent study was created for me in several different art classes. And for my last year, for my senior year of high school. And at that point, I was feeling really alone because I was kind of like not really getting along with a lot of people. Some of my good friends had already dropped out of school. Michael and I were fighting because we knew each other in high school. We were kind of not speaking at the time. So yeah, it was just a weird time for me, but art got me through. Anyway, that's total aside. But whenever I went to college, I was an art major for the first like 2 years or so. And then I got completely disillusioned with art. There were some like there was, a story that I won't go into right now. But beyond sort of the trauma aspect, the thing that really made me want to break up with art was art critique. Because we were expected in art school to anything we created, we would show it to the whole class, and then everybody would stand around and critique each other's work. And I hated it because it was, though, I always think about Ghost World. Have you seen that movie? There's like the way that the art class in that movie was represented is kind of accurate to how art classes really are, because it was a lot of like people that had not put a whole lot of, art is absolutely 100% subjective, right? Like whether or not you think something is good is going to be school's getting out right now. Whether or not you think something is good is going to be based on your own preferences. And that's exactly the situation that we're dealing with tarot. Like your relationship to a particular tarot deck is going to be limited to what you find to be beautiful, it's going to be like based on a list of completely subjective things, right? It's like playing apples to apples. Like you win for subjective reasons, right? Or you pick which adjective you like or whatever it is, based on subjective reasons. Like I will always pick, what's the one that's like, I will always pick words in apples to apples that I think are fun to say out loud. It is completely arbitrary, and some of my family members get mad at me because of it. But others, they know my number, so they know exactly how, whenever it's my turn to like be the judge or whatever you call it when you're playing apples to apples, they know what words to pick. They know which words I like, Anyway, what was I talking about? Hold on, let me gather myself here. Okay, so art critique ruined art for me because people that didn't put very much effort into their art would just stand up there and be like, well, I chose this because big word, snobby, snobby, snobby. And everybody would be like, wow, so cool. Because that person that made that lazy art was casting a spell on everyone with their words. Whereas when it got to me, I would just be like, I don't know, I thought it was pretty, so I made this thing that I thought was pretty. Because number one, I didn't want to like get really like vulnerable and emotional in front of everyone. And I also didn't want to like, blow smoke up their ass about what it was. Like, for example, we had a project where we had to pick the title of a book and make a piece of art based on the title of the book. It had to be a book that we'd never read before. And I chose, let me see if no, I don't have it up, so I can't show you. I chose Women Who Run with the Wolves, which I've now read parts of, but at the time I had never read any of it. I chose Women Who Run with the Wolves simply because I wanted to make a piece of artwork that had women and wolves in it. And I made a piece of artwork that had women and wolves in it. And when it got to my turn to like present my art to the class, I was just like, it's got chicks and wolves. And like, I would sometimes get graded poorly, not on the quality of my work, not on the amount of effort that I put into it, because how do you grade an art class? How do you grade an art student in an art class? To me, the way that you grade them is how much effort are they putting into it, how much are they trying to develop their own voice, and how much progress have they made over the course of the class. That's how you have to grade an art student in an art class. However, you know, art teachers, sometimes, most of the time, they grade you based on if they like you or not, or if they like your work or not. Anyway, the point of that is art critique ruined art for me. And that is starting to happen to me with tarot. Like, listening to how people, it's delightful to see how different people interpret the different imagery of tarot. It's really cool. It's really cool. And you essentially have these boxes of art galleries, that you can fit in your purse. And I still love that. I still think that's magical. But it's hearing what other people say about it is getting into my brain, and it's making me forget what I feel. And that's happening to me across the board, not just with tarot, but with everything in my life, with especially anything that's product related, right? Because you believe the spells, the marketing spells. You start to believe it, and then you buy it, and then you realize it's all bullshit, and you hate it, and you want to eject it immediately, if you're me. Or if you're the type of person like me that needs to purge whenever they have spent their hard-earned money on something that is not worth it to them, whenever they've fallen for, some of my guilt associated with the things that I buy that end up not working for me is based upon if I know that I fell for someone else's spell. So we have to be cognizant as human beings of what we say, because we are casting a spell with our words. And this is something that my mom instilled in me from a young age. She didn't say it like you're casting a spell with your words, but she would encourage me to always speak in, I don't know what the right term for this would be, but in non-negative statements. So like, you don't say don't, you don't say don't touch that, because someone might accidentally not hear the don't, or the universe might not hear the don't. And so all you hear is touch that. Like, this tattoo should probably not be stop making sense. It should probably be reworded to, I don't know, be nonsensical or something like that. But I mean, it's based on a Talking Heads lyric, or Talking Heads show. But, essentially the idea there is that you say what you want. You don't say it, don't. You know what I mean? Do you smell what I'm stepping in? As my brother Sagan would say, do you smell what I'm stepping in? Anyway, so the whole point is, in order to, if you're thinking about casting a spell for yourself for autumn equinox, my best advice to you is to turn off all the thoughts from everyone else. Turn off the YouTube, turn off podcasts, listen to music maybe, because for me anyway, music doesn't influence me in a particular way. Music is just, or, music definitely can cast a spell, but you can pick music that gives you the vibes that you want to have, right? You can pick an album that really well, that puts you in a good space. Listen to that instead of listening to the thoughts of everyone else. I spend so much of my time watching YouTube videos that and the thoughts of everyone else constantly running through my head. I feel like Buffy in that episode called Earshot, where she got an aspect of the demon, and she ended up being able to hear everyone's thoughts. I feel like that. I feel like that lately, because it's just I'm constantly thinking about what everyone else is thinking, and I'm becoming more and more closed in with what I think, because I can't even access my own fucking thoughts anymore sometimes. So I had a night recently where, it was just one night where there was a lot of stuff going on, and I was obsessing about particular things in my life. And I had a day where I was sick, Michael was sick. We spent the day just kind of hanging out at home, just, resting and playing Mario Kart. And then at night, he he was playing his synthesizers, which he does like right in the room next door. He was playing his synthesizers, so I wasn't able to like put on YouTube videos or whatever because there was already sound in the room, you know, and it was just ambient sound that he was making. And so I chose that time period, when that time period at night would have normally been filled with me having conversations with friends on WhatsApp, and me, which is good. I like having conversations with friends. I really do. I've made some great friends in the last year. But also, I would be listening to YouTube videos, trying to find a YouTube video to watch, just to have on as like background noise while I'm doing whatever I'm doing. But instead, that day, I chose to just, you know, play with tarot cards and write in my journal. And I started asking myself some really like deep questions and pulling cards and journaling about whatever I pulled up. Speaking of visual prompts. And I realized, this was just a space of like 3 or 4 hours, just an evening, that just this time of shutting out everyone else's thoughts for a minute, shutting out the sound of people's voices for a minute, I was able to find my own voice again. So that would be my prescription to you. If you're choosing to make a spell surrounding autumn equinox, choose some kind of protection boundary spell where you can really meditate on what you actually feel. For once, you know, check in with yourself. If you feel like you don't check in with yourself enough, which is definitely what was happening with me, like you know, it's like the older we get, the more I know what everyone else fucking thinks of me, or I think I know what other people think of me, and I forget what I actually feel about myself. So do whatever you have to do to shut out the thoughts, to break the spell. Break the spell that other people are casting with their words. And I'm not saying that like anybody's being nefarious. You know, we're just telling each other our opinions on the internet most of the time. But we limit ourselves and we limit each other when we're constantly taking all of this on. We're overstimulating ourselves in our lives. We're just like listening to the news all the time. We're, you know, figuring out what everyone feels about the new tarot deck. You know, like when we look at a new tarot deck, we look at, you know, 12 reviews of it before we buy it. And, you know, we are just taking on too much. And as a child, I knew how to handle this. As a child, I only listened to my own opinions on things most of the time. And it really protected me from a lot. You know, I had the things that I loved and I ignored everything else. And for me, I have a low tolerance for stimulus because I'm autistic. So there's not a lot I can handle. Like I really can't handle more all the time, ever, about anything. More and more friends, more and more interactions, more and more tarot cards. I really can't. Everything has to be kept smaller because I can only wrap my head around so many things. And so if you are finding yourself very overwhelmed, one of the things you can do is just take in less information. Protect yourself. Figure out what you think for once. That's what the Two of Swords is all about. It's about shutting out everyone else's spells, all their word spells. Shut off all their word spells and figure out your own. Figure out what you think. Cast spells on yourself to make things better for you. You know, our attention, you know, we live in an attention economy, as they say, and our attention is being sucked out of us to where we can't even listen to ourselves anymore. So anyway, I could probably talk about this for another hour, but I will stop. So, because there are screaming children outside my window. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Okay, that's it. Bye. Happy fall equinox.